Welcome back to YMHA. I'm here tonight joined with Amy. And tonight, as we get started, we are being sponsored tonight by Hometown Landscaping here in Wellington. If you reach out to them, you'll see their contact info in the opening credits and in our end here. But reach out to them. James is a good guy. I've known him for years. He is actually offering, you mentioned that you heard about them from one of our videos. They're offering a free weed and feed application to all first-time customers with a paid service. So reach out to the guys over there at Hometown Landscaping. That being said, Amy, welcome back. How you doing today?
I'm awesome, and I'm really excited to be back with everybody. I feel like it's been forever. So be ready for unleashing Amy back into the world.
Oh, absolutely. It's been an extremely long time since we've been together. And I know that we are working to kind of catch up. We are all working on some different little projects for the company and trying to get everybody. I know everybody's schedule first quarter of the year is always hectic for everyone. You yourself, I know, are busy to say the very least, and that's putting it very mildly, the next at least 3 weeks. So real quick, as we get started, Amy, real quick, want to send our congratulations out to you. Amy is closing on a new home here, hopefully in the next week and a half. So congratulations on that. We're all looking forward to crashing that with some major parties. So thanks for buying a house for all of us to enjoy.
Cornhole and barbecue, baby.
Exactly. We're just going to go over there and we're going to show Amy that, she sucks at cornhole compared to us. But whatever. It is what it is.
He thinks. Don't worry, we're going to get it live. So tune into that.
There you go. So, somebody had reached out to me, a good friend of mine. His name is Aaron. We actually call him Potter. So if you've ever met the guy, you know that he looks like Harry Potter, hence how he got his nickname Potter. Really cool guy. We've known him for years. Him and I traveled a couple of years ago back to Seattle to see one of our best friends get married. And we were talking, and he had said, look, some things that I think that he thinks people don't understand, and myself included, I will admit that, is how to interact with somebody that's on the autism spectrum. So sure. Aaron gave us some great ideas, wants to know a little bit more from our perspective, and to maybe put a little bit of education out there regarding what autism is, what the how you fall on the spectrum, if you can identify somebody without them telling you that they're on the spectrum. So there's different forms, obviously. So we want to kind of talk about for a little bit here. Amy's going to talk to us about what autism is, and then some of the signs we can look for, just to be more conscious for ourselves. So Amy, to start off, what is, from your point of view, from a practitioner point of view, I know you practice NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. So for those of you who don't know, Amy is a practitioner. What is autism? Break it down for us in the most simplest, basic form you can.
Sure. And, autism, or being on the spectrum, which has to do with autism, meaning that there's a scale, right? And there are actually 5 different types of autism, and that's how we kind of grade where people will fall on this scale. Because there's varying degrees of symptoms that people are affected by when they have autism, some being very mild and some being more extreme. And it's kind of like anything, really. And these symptoms are probably pretty similar to a lot of other things. And honestly, you and I can relate with a lot of them too, I'm sure. We just don't have the combination of all of them all of the time, and being a little bit out of control of our sensory systems when it comes to this. So that's really what it is. And it's a cognitive disorder, basically. So you have symptoms to explain, like hyperactivity, and this can be varying degrees. Again, so that's why we have 5 different types, which I'll talk about here in a second. Okay. You may have impulsivity, and again, from mild to extreme, right? Sliding scale on everything here. Short attention spans, mild to extreme, same thing. Aggression, mild to extreme. Temper tantrums, causing self-harm as well. So you've also got different things like unusual habits, whether it be sleeping or eating or speaking. Their linguistic skills may be delayed. Visual skills may be impaired or delayed, meaning they can't make or maintain eye contact. They can't start or maintain a conversation. Different moods and emotional disorders. So those are a little bit ambiguous. It's a little bit vague. So you should definitely have a clinical diagnosis or seek out professional medical help to obtain a clinical diagnosis. So to find out, if you are on the spectrum, if your child is on the spectrum, where that might fall and things like that. So you may fall under the first level, which is very, very mild, and that's actually called Asperger's. And that's just a very mild form. And sometimes people have thought Asperger's is a totally and completely separate thing from autism and being on the spectrum. But here we go, we can
Okay.
clear up some confusion. Asperger's is so incredibly mild that you have probably encountered somebody at your work or in your day-to-day life that has a touch of Asperger's and you never even knew it, because their symptoms are so mild and they can function and they can work in society and they can hang out with you and I, and you really literally would barely ever know. So only certain things are going to overwhelm their sensory systems. So, and that's why it's important for us to learn, which we'll talk about later in some of these videos, how to speak to somebody who's on the spectrum, how to go about dealing with people on the spectrum and things like that. You've had Rett syndrome, I should say, which has since been removed from the spectrum. You've also got CDD, which is childhood disintegrative disorder. And you've got Kanner's syndrome, which is the classic form of autism, falling at level 4, and level 5, your most extreme, is your pervasive developmental disorder. And so that's where we grade and where people would fall in the line or in the spectrum of autism.
Okay. So if I'm out, right, and you go, all right, and the idea is that we treat nobody different, right? It's everybody's a human, right? We all get up, we put our pants on one leg at a time. At least I hope you do. And if you're doing it a different way without falling, please let us know. I'm sure Amy would love to have that conversation with y'all. But so we want to be cognizant of people around us. We want to make sure that we're respectful. I'm not saying that we need to be uber sensitive. What I'm saying is just we need to be decent human beings.
Just kidding.
Well, it's about being a decent human being, right? So, Amy, talk to me a little bit about this. We go out and we're at a restaurant, we're at a bar, whatever, and the person next to you, they start talking. What are some signs maybe that you might see? Well, to be fair, Amy would actually say no.
I don't want to talk, especially.
So, what are some signs though that we might pick up on that would be good for us to pick up on or notice maybe that, hey, this person may be on the spectrum, so we want to be polite, be respectful, but maybe alter how fast, how slow, our tone, or this or that. What are some signs that you would say that we look at?
So first thing right off the bat that I would say to anybody, and I began my work and went in health and fitness and wellness and eventually getting into mental health and everything like that. I started with kids. I started working with youths before I started with anybody else. So I've got a long running experience I used to work with kids doing Special Olympics and all different kinds. And I work with people with cognitive disorders of all types.
Okay.
So I've encountered a lot of this. The biggest rule, whether it's a child or an adult, it does not make any difference, is don't treat him any differently than you would an other adult. Don't talk to them like they're a child if they are an adult anyway. And even if they are a child, try to talk to them with that same engagement and respect and language and everything that you would. Because here's the key. These people are trying to form their independent identity because they do have cognitive issues. So they find that very important. So respect is huge to them. And they can tell, they can really pick up on things. So don't talk to them any differently than you would to another regular, normal adult, you and I, etc. That's really the biggest thing. You kind of don't want to treat them too differently. Just because they're different, that doesn't make any difference, honestly. And you should engage with them and kind of challenge them a little bit to engage back with you. It's just what you get may not be what you expect. And that's the thing. So kick your expectations.
So real quick, hang on. So real quick, you're standing there. I know we want to treat everybody with respect. Talk to them the way you would want to be talked to, right? We're not treating somebody any different. That's I think kind of a golden rule, right? We want to practice that. What's a sign that we can look for? What's a visual clue, a verbal cue that, anybody out there who doesn't necessarily know somebody, right? We're not going to walk up and say, hey, are you autistic? Are you on the spectrum? What's one or two things that we should be looking for or listening for that would help us real quick pick up and say, oh, you know what? I need to make sure I'm cognizant of how I'm acting.
Absolutely. So a big thing, communication is mostly almost 60% body language. So let's perceive a little bit here. Are they making eye contact? Where are their eyes going to? Can they speak in, proper speech patterns? So are we picking up on those things? Are there delays? You know, are there things like that? Are there pauses? Are they struggling to
Right.
respond in a normal amount of time? So we can find out really quickly by just simply watching their body language and watching how they respond, or if they're getting really overwhelmed, or if they're
Gotcha.
going to have a sensory kind of meltdown. Probably because you pose too much information back to them all at one time. You got to slow it down one thing at a time.
Gotcha.
So
Okay. So that's a good thing to know. So what else outside of the visual cues, right? We said, you just said 60% is going to be body language, it's visual.
yeah,
What would you say the other 40% is going to be composed of? If it's a multitude of things, if it's one big thing, what would you say?
38% it's tonality. So be careful with your tone. Don't have your tone be too loud. Anything that's going to overwhelm their senses, right? Anything they see that's going to be overwhelming, sensory overload. Here, is it too loud? Is it too much? Loud music, you know, just too much going on, right, in the room, things like that. So it will
Gotcha.
overwhelm their senses. And that's when they really can't process all the information that they're getting, and they start to shut down. So
Gotcha.
it's just like pump the brakes just a little bit. Like when you're talking to them, don't use super familiar terms like honey
Mm.
or things like that. Speak to them very specifically, you
Okay.
know, because they're trying to form their identity and they appreciate things like that. So
Gotcha.
that's a good tip and a good rule. Say what you mean, get right to the point. It has to be very direct so that they can grasp that concept, and
Perfect.
just take time to listen and give them time to respond. This is good too. Going back to my other video about internal rep systems, some people that are auditory digital, we need more time to respond anyways because we're in our
Right.
heads. So it's good for everybody. This is just a good general for communication and dealing with people. But it's great if you have somebody who has a learning disability or is on the spectrum or has some sort of cognitive
Correct.
disorder. They're processing at a little bit different speed and in a different way than we are. So give them that time.
Okay. So good. So look, I think that the idea is we have a better understanding, not necessarily a specific and medical from a medical stance, but we as people, right? The bare basic, we have a better understanding, a generalization of what autism really is. Because for myself, again, until my friend Potter had said anything about it, I never would have known. It
Right.
was one of those. We all were friends. We all hung out. We all knew that, hey, he may want to process a little bit differently than I would, than the next person would, and our group of friends just kind of knew that.
Sure.
But I think it was a good idea for us to talk about that. For those who don't know, April is Autism Awareness Month, hence why we're going to be airing these videos this month. But so I'm glad that we spent a little bit of time talking about what autism is, some of the signs we can be, look for, to be a little bit more cognizant. Again, not saying we need to be uber sensitive, but we need to be just that respectful, polite human, a decent human being. So Amy, thank you for sharing that. So I know that we're going to be talking about over this next month, that we're in Autism Awareness Month of April. We're going to talk about autism a lot. That's what we're going to really gear our conversations around, because autism can affect anybody and everybody, right? It's not, it's, and I hate to say this, but it's not like, it's cancer and autism are kind of the same in this sense, and only in this sense, right? It does not discriminate of who it's going to affect, right? It can affect anybody at any given time. So I think it's a good idea, and I love the idea that that Aaron had brought this out to us. Potter brought this up to me, because I'm looking forward to it. Future videos, we're going to get a little bit more in depth, maybe talking about some things, how we're going to interact, how we talk with people, things like that. And then I think Amy, you and I are going to share a few more personal experiences that we've been through. So
Absolutely.
thank you for all the information, guys. We look forward to seeing you in our next video. Hope this helps, and guys, stay safe out there. We'll talk to you soon.